Become a Saint with Nico, Episode 10. We're reading from the life of St. Philip Neri. Besides prayer, he studied how to macerate his flesh with every sort of mortification. He slept very little, and mostly upon the bare earth, and disciplined himself nearly every day with some little chains of iron. He loved poverty as his dearest companion, avoided conversation, and all recreations, even blameless ones. In a word, he studied how to deprive himself of everything which could bring comfort or pleasure to his body. His life now became more retired than ever. Indeed, he almost separated himself like a hermit from commerce with men. Above all things, he gave himself to silence, which he prized and practiced all his life long, so far as his institute allowed, and he made use of these means to enable himself to attend with greater fervor the contemplation of divine things. In order to do so with greater recollection, he adopted the devotion of going every night to the 7 churches, a distance of some 12 miles, and particularly to the cemetery of San Castillo, generally called the Catacombs of St. Sebastian, and there he prayed for a long while together. He used to carry with him, either under his arm or in his hood, some devout book and a roll of bread on which he lived all day. It was in consequence of these practices that a Dominican friar named Father Francesco Cardone della Camerino, master of the novices in the convent of Minerva, used to propose him to the novices as a model of penance, and often said to them, "Philip Neri is a great saint, and among other wonderful things, he has dwelt for 10 years in the caves of St. Sebastian in the practice of penance, and has lived on bread and the roots of herbs." For although his regular habitation was in the house of Galeotto Cacita, he mostly spent the night in the caves of St. Sebastian. Whenever he found the churches shut, he used to remain under the porticos, where he was often seen reading by the light of the moon, particularly at St. Mary Major's and St. Peter's, for he lived in such poverty that he could not provide himself even with a piece of candle for a light. Besides the above-mentioned visits, he went for some time to the 4 churches, for once, when speaking disparagingly of himself, he mentioned that he had gone for many years to the 4 basilicas of St. Peter, St. John Lateran, Holy Cross, and St. Mary Major, where he often occupied himself in instructing the poor who stay about the doors of those churches. In these places, Philip was often surprised by such an abundance of spiritual consolations that, unable any longer to endure such a great fire of love, he was forced to cry out, "No more, Lord, no more." And throwing himself down, he used to roll upon the ground, not having strength to endure the vehement affection which he felt in his heart. And being thus so full of God, we need not wonder at his often saying that to one who truly loved God, nothing was really burdensome as life. For these words were often on his lips: "The true servants of God take life patiently and death eagerly." A takeaway from today is that even though St. Philip Neri was practicing all these mortifications, he was embracing suffering, right? His body was in pain. Nevertheless, God gave St. Philip Neri these consolations. He was with St. Philip Neri in these difficult moments. St. Philip Neri was basically detaching himself from this world. He was disciplining his body because he was so in love with God. He wasn't doing it, as we might be tempted to do, let's just force our way, let's just discipline our body, let's hurt our body, have all this pain, right? As a way of getting to that next level in the spiritual life. But this mortification that St. Philip did to his body was a result of his love. God was giving him spiritual consolations even as he was doing this. He was so in love with God, right? He would tell God no more, and he would roll around on the floor, right? He would it was too much for him. It was too much, his love for God. And even though he was going through all this pain. So don't get overwhelmed and think, okay, now I have to hurt my body. Now I have to force all this suffering upon myself. Look at it from a different perspective as our takeaway today. Be so in love with God that the sufferings are more bearable than the consolations, right? St. Philip Neri didn't say no more sufferings, right? He said no more to the spiritual consolations. Is your heart on fire with love for God so that union with God is more unbearable, it's more overpowering than all these sufferings in your life? And if it's not, then, that's okay. We're not dead yet. By the grace of God, we have this time. Now is the time of mercy. Now is the time of having that relationship with God. Well, how do we get that love for God? Well, we see St. Philip Neri in yesterday's episode, 40 hours of prayer at a time. We have to, if we want a relationship with someone, if we want to be united with someone and have that love that, of course, love is not only a feeling. Of course, love is not a feeling. Love is laying down your life for someone. And that, as a result, feels good, right? It feels good when we give something to someone else. I think it was St. Mother Teresa that said it feels better, when you serve other people than when you get things from them. We must be willing to put in that time with God to get to that next level of perfection, to get to the highest level of perfection. We must want to pray. And if you don't want to pray at first, totally fine. Start it. Set a timer for yourself. Okay, today I'm going to pray 1 minute. The next day, 2 minutes. The next day, 3 minutes. Work your way up. Set yourself a goal. That's your takeaway from today. Set yourself a goal. That's our takeaway from today. Let's set ourselves a goal. Where do we want to be in a week from now, a month from now, a year from now? How many hours a day do we want to pray? If we want to be on fire with love for God, we have to let ourselves burn. We have to put in that time. We have to make ourselves available to Him. We can't just let God, come down for like a minute a day or 15 minutes a day, and then boom, like you're on fire for 15 minutes. Like, is that going to be a consuming fire if we're only giving God 15 minutes a day? Well, if we want to be on fire with love for God as St. Philip Neri was, we should put in the time. We should really make God our deepest love, our biggest relationship, the relationship that we put the most time into.